Um, fantasy weapons versus sci-fi weapons. Which would win?
That depends. What do you think, Lloyd?
Uh, well, if sci-fi is futuristic and fantasy, all right. So fantasy is magic, is it? Oh well. In that case, it's entirely up to us, isn't it? We are the makers of magic, so we just get to decide how powerful magic is. If you want to make it more powerful than a laser beam, it is because magic.
Exactly. Like, is that a Death Star? Magic.
Yes.
I mean, like, if you're doing good sci-fi, you should like mold the technology around logical levels, like in terms of power levels. But having said that, you can justify some pretty absurd things, like. They didn't justify it well, but a space the size of a moon that can destroy planets. They sold it enough. I mean, when you really break it down, there's a lot of issues with it. But
I do remember reading this thing where there was this type of magic which took energy from the environment, and they had these massive stone flywheels, and they would spend ages getting these flywheels getting up to speed, and then there's several tons of flywheel going round and round and round, and then the magician would stand next to it, cast the spell, and the flywheel would just stop because all the energy had been taken out of it.
Oh, that is
interesting. And then they had to spend the next getting it going again just with muscle power, because that's all they had.
I actually really like that. Because it adds a good structural limitation, but also framework for the magic. Do you know what series that's from? Because that's actually really cool. That's an inventive idea.
The energy has to come from somewhere, so
yeah, I love it. That's really, really cool.
And in my fantasy universe, the timeline goes from ancient times up to the sci-fi-ish era, in which magic and sci-fi weapons live together.
That is very cool. And
if magic existed, it would just be technology, wouldn't it? I mean, if you can research a new spell, isn't that like inventing a gadget?
Well, I think Shad's universe is also a great example for that, where science and magic live together.
Yeah, I think I guess funny, the division between science and magic, and like saying it depends how much is understood about it is a decent way. I mean, another division would be to say if it's founded on truly fictitious elements, like there's an energy source that people are manipulating things, but they do that in sci-fi as well. It's just generally the people controlling it. There are exceptions, but generally the people controlling it in sci-fi, it's not people, it's technology. But in a fantasy, it's people that can manipulate this energy or whatever fancy kind of thing. And so there's a lot of different ways. But I tend to like magic that has rules. That's what I did in my book. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different variants and ways to approach it. And indeed. But thank you for those questions, Dylan. And
I had... I was going into a next question.
Oh, yeah, okay, one more.
So what? Shad is playing bad cop and Lloyd playing good cop.
Actually, it's a bit of both. But it's funny, Lloyd's character gets to do some intimidation actions in the scene. And so there's a bit of a mix. It's not strictly one or the other.
I think we're probably nice cop and nicer still cop.
Oh yeah, they're very pleasant chaps, but serious in certain circumstances about certain things. But you're right, they're nice guys. I agree.
I have David Shields who asks Lloyd, have you done any acting on screen before?
Well, in lots of my own videos, of course. And when I worked at a studios in Pelor, I did some acting on the small screen, usually in other people's training films or corporates or little stuff. I've never been in a proper short film, the full budget, with crew and everything done properly. But on my channel, I'd say fair bit of what I've done in the past. I think comes under the broad category acting. But don't we all act ourselves anywes? I mean, even as I'm talking to you now, I'm just playing the part of someone who's a YouTuber who pretends to know what the hell the answer to this question is.
So I can relate. But you do have that series. It's like a pilot series, or the documentary series that you did a while back. Yes, Built for the Stone Age. And I thought they were actually really well made. And so I would kind of consider that somewhat type of, it is acting work, but you're being more of a presenter in those pieces.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well I was also, yes, I was the presenter and the writer and the director and the lighting man and the producer and the costumes. Oh wow, that was an exhausting time. Yes, but I did for some of those scenes have a crew of 1. So that was good.
And you've also done like theatre stage work outside of like school as well, haven't you? Because I remember you went to... something, am I right, or am I missing?
No, I've done a bit here and there. A friend of mine, he writes in the style of Gilbert and Sullivan shows, and I've been in several of his. And it's wonderful. The party to rehearsal ratio is really good because everyone else, they have to go to loads of rehearsals because they have to sing. And he just gives me an acting part. So I just turn up to 2 rehearsals and then I get the after party. So that's a really good ratio of rehearsal to party.
I have another question from Rebecca Violet. You may have discussed it in previous live streams, but what's the timeline for the release? Also, any travel concerns with the pandemic? I think
that's one that you can kind of answer.
Yeah.
There, Dylan.
So, obviously, there are concerns with travel with the pandemic, and we mentioned it at the start of the stream, and basically we're gonna have to wait for the restrictions to be lifted for us to shoot. I don't think we can have Lloyd, Shad, and the guys from Diratia come in, then seclude themselves for 2 weeks for us to then shoot for a week, and for them to go back to their country, and then they have to be in lockdown for another 2 weeks. Which I think would be a bit of a waste of time for them. So I think it's not doable to do it that way. We really have to wait for the restrictions to be let down, and that's why we have a timeline on our Kickstarter page. So if you want to go to our Kickstarter page, there is a tentative timeline of when the short film and the feature film could be released, but the feature film is really speculative. So if everything goes well, the short film should be released in a year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I have to be completely open about it, because we don't want to have any mad fans that are surprised that it's not come out in 1 month. No, it's gonna take, if everything goes well, we're gonna shoot in October, and again, if everything goes well with the post-production, it's gonna take 3 to 6 months of post-production, and then we can release it. And that's if nothing goes sideways, which there's always something that goes sideways.
And because people have been asking about the release, how will they be able to watch it? It's going to be published on my YouTube channel for free for everyone to watch. No barriers or anything. There will be a pre kind of premiere, which will be specifically for people who have backed the project and will be there to be part of it in chat. It'll have to be an online premiere. But after that, it's going to be online for everyone, which I think is brilliant. So that's going to be exciting.